The activity today is going to have you continue some work in BSP brushes. We use this for phase one when we're roughing out a shape that will be a play space. In other words, a level. Yeah, that's basically the idea, right? We've talked about the four-phase development. Let's take a look at some samples from the past of what the corridor project looks like when students have gotten it done. Got a lot of this information is on our game programming drive. So if you are on, this is going to be there's two versions of this we're going to do. And so now you can see this is a camera view. The camera was done by the student as well. And I paused it. I want you to take into process here that there is a corridor or hallway here with some light coming in from the outside. There's also some light above coming from these lights. There's little emissive property on the elevator lights at the end of the hall. There's a light being emitted over here along the wall. All of the items on the walls are by choosing of the student, typically their own work. The general construction of the corridor, including the stairs, is going to be done today by you using brush shapes. So if I go ahead and play this project here, you can see again there's a series of doors. Those are going to be cut out by you using BSP operations, some stairways that are going to be done using BSP operations. That was one student sample done during the day. We also have students, if we do the whole project, create the same level at night. And sometimes we've even had students add thematic music so that it sounds more interesting. It's the same exact space, very dark in this presentation, but there's no outside light coming in. It's still all done. Boy, it's very difficult to see that particular example here in showing this off. So the corridor project is going to be done today by you. You're going to run a video, and you can actually skip the first video, which is an introduction. I'll show you where that is. And I just want to kind of give you the lay of the land here. Remember, when you're watching a video, whether it's me or Alex or anybody else, do the following things. These are big time tips for you. Alex speaks relatively calmly, and yet that can have a danger of being almost monotone. Make sure you turn on closed captioning, which I'm just trying to indicate here in the background, the closed captioning. And you can change the speed. The beginning of most people's videos, you can go probably 1.5 speed as long as you're processing it. And then you might get into a point where you're like, what did they just do? Or you might catch yourself and go, I got distracted for a minute. Move the scrub bar back and forth. This might seem like it's a basic, I know how to watch a video, but at the same time, I don't see students necessarily apply this. They'll start to watch the video, they'll phase out, they'll think I watched the video, and then they'll think they understand it. Again, the point is not to rush through to the end. Yes, you could watch the whole thing at double speed and say, I watched the video, and then try to do the work. And you're probably going to have questions that were actually covered in the video, but you rushed yourself. So don't rush yourself. That's the main message I want you to understand there. What I want you to understand is that you can change your settings here as playback speed. Now, here's another big tip. So even though I'm going to tell you, turn on your captioning, I'm going to tell you, change your speed. You'll notice that if you play this even full screen through Google Classroom, it's actually rather pixelated. So here's the other tip is I want you to actually know where this file is on the network drive, because I want you to be able to grab this. So here's where it is. It's under Unreal. It's in a folder, starts with the number 2, called the Corridor Project, UE4, the Corridor Project, part 1 of 2. All right? That's a pretty long path. Let me drop that into public chat for your reference. If you're logged on, that's the folder. Okay, you can copy and paste that into an Explorer window, and you can get right to it. Problem is, he's going to start to work with a BSP. Now, this is a very important concept. He's bringing in a model that shows you a T-pose character that's built in the engine for scaling. Scaling is critical. If you are on a team and you are creating anything in the pipeline and you don't know what the scale is, your work will not look good next to others. And this is true in real life as well as in digital production. It's very important you understand the scale. If you get through this project and you want to start building your own house, which is something that's optional after the fact, your home that you live in, make sure that you pay attention and include that character. You don't keep them in there when you're playing the game. It's just there for reference. So what we're seeing here is BSP operations. It's more advanced than just doing your name as I had you do. And I'm just scrubbing ahead to kind of show you the process. Now you're going to find your own means and ways of working with BSP operations, but you're going to learn it through application, hands-on. So I want to get your hands on the computer doing this relatively quickly today, because you're going to get practice using some stairs, doing additive operations, doing subtractive operations, not worrying about the static meshes, not worrying about textures or materials, not worrying about lighting or polish. All of that comes after. So by the end of this process, you will have built a corridor that has windows cut out of it, that has stairs off of it on both ends. Don't worry about the later processes. It's really important that you get time practicing your brush operations to actually get this done. If you skip this, then you're going to be in a position where you don't have the next part for this workflow. All right, so the corridor I do have on a different screen. Let me start sharing a different screen here. Actually, I'll just drag it over, put it on the same screen here. So this is the corridor project. And if I were to look at this particular level from the top down, I think it's important you kind of get an idea. This one's everything's been replaced with static meshes. The corridor is not a huge space. It's really a romper room in effect. Can anybody using chat tell me how I could tell you the size of this in Unreal units? Does anyone have any idea how to measure something in Unreal? Pro tip. In a top-down or side view, not a perspective, but in a locked orthographic view, your middle mouse button becomes a tape measure. So if I click and hold, I can drag across and it gives me a number in white that shows me how many units long this is. So I can get a relative idea. This brown box at the top here is probably a light mass importance volume. We'll talk about those later. So it's about 3,400 units. Well, another way to figure out how big something is in general is to use a built-in grid feature within the Unreal Engine. You may have noticed when you went through the tour and you saw all the different features in the Unreal Editor that they talked about a grid as well as a grid size. And if I set this grid size to 500 units, you'll notice the sizes of the boxes give me a pretty easy way to count units. I can kind of eyeball this and go, all right, so it's 1, 2, 3,000 units, 3,500 units long is the size. We'll use this plus snap in an upcoming project this week. So that will be spiraled as well, the understanding of the grid and snap. Not going to be a huge factor when we're working with BSP operations, but I want you to be aware it's there because it's a great tool for you. So if I look at this in a side view, it's going to really depend on which side I jump to. So whatever you call front is not necessarily important. It's just a relatively speaking. What I wanted to highlight to you is, if I zoom in here, is that from a side view, and when you go to relate your design to other people, it's important, I believe, to not just show them a top-down, because there's traditionally going to be, or typically going to be, a change in elevation in a 3D world. The starting point or main part of the corridor is this section that I will put my head under here in a second. So just above my head here is what I would call the main area. And then on both ends, it's hard to tell in this view, there is a set of stairs that goes up to a landing, another set of stairs to a second landing. We talked about landings when we talked about real-life staircases, making sure that the top and bottom have an area for you to turn, that you don't run into a wall. So that's from a front. If I look from a side view, such as left, you're going to see a different perspective. And what I want you to appreciate is that in no one view, blueprint style, is it easy to really understand the overall shape. That ultimately, if it's a 3D experience, Nowadays, we tend to actually use a perspective viewport and even do a mock-up. So now I'm in a perspective view, and I can use my left mouse button and use WASD to kind of show here's some staircases that come up. This is just a stub. There's not really a whole long corridor up here. Our brains use something called closure. We like to look for patterns. And what we end up doing is we imagine, for example, that behind this elevator door is an actual elevator, when in effect, there's not. So, this is something that, as a creator of a digital world, you want to understand that there may be areas that you want the player to consider, oh, there's got to be something beyond there. They might even try to open the door, not knowing that behind it there's nothing. So this is the corridor. It's a relatively small space. This one's already been set up with the static meshes. It's not the early version. You're going to rough this out, but I wanted to have an idea what it's going to look like so that when you go to build it, you understand what you're doing with these brush operations. What questions do you have for me on what I'm asking you to do today? I'm going to pause the recording here. Okay, so I'm resuming the recording. A couple of questions that came up, both good ones. One was, you want us to build our homes today? That's a time available thing. The main thing is to follow the flow to build this. Second question that I handled offline was first person, third person, or blank. Your choice. Don't make it a vehicle level. You're not going to drive a level in there. Don't do twin stick. There's some other game types that would not be appropriate, but you could use first or third for it. And then I was going to mention, I want to do a demonstration of this. Hopefully it's here. This is unrehearsed. I'm going to make my content browser larger because really what I'm going to be doing is talking about the content browser for a minute. Because you're fairly new to Unreal, I want you to remember that the content browser, in this instance, I'm looking where my maps are. And I'm on one called Corridor Day. There's another version of it called Corridor Night. Different lighting there. I'm going to click on this little set of lines that is next to, so if you look, oh, there we go, fingers on the wrong side there. If you look right over here, there's a set of lines that if you turn them off and on, you'll see the folder structure. Personally, I think in many instances, it is very helpful to see that you've got content such as this. This has got starter content in it. It's got static meshes in it. You don't need my fingers there the whole time. Some of the static meshes that you can copy in here are ones that are designed to be used in the standard build of the corridor. However, instead of using wall art 1 and wall art 2, typically I have students put renders of their own 3ds Max scenes or something from their portfolio, so their corridor ends up featuring their work. Instead of putting the plant on the stands, I like to have students put their 3D creations, like the tank, the impossible shape, etc. So it ends up being more customized. Now, one thing that's not showing by default is the engine content. So there's a way to show the engine content in our views here. So under filters, I believe there's an option to show engine content. Basic blueprints, level material, animation. I haven't looked for it in a while. Collections. Well, I believe it's called tutorial. This is good because this is something that maybe Alex covers in his video. So let me jump. So he's talking about the size of a character and he builds a box. And right between this point here and the next point, he has put a box in place and he's about to bring in a character that's in the content folder. And the content folder under engine content. Now, if we don't have engine content in there, I'll have to show you how to add it because I didn't see engine content. So let me jump into our current version. I don't see engine content here. No, I do not. View options. There we go. All right. I'll pause for a minute because this is the important thing here. See where it says show engine content? That's what you want to make sure you've clicked on there. If I turn on show engine content right over here, which I got to from view options, everybody with me there? Yeah, I see somebody made a suggestion there. No, we don't turn off that, but what we do is we go to the lower right where it says view options, and we say show engine content. All right, engine content is built in, and if I open up this folder, it gives me a myriad of resources which are available to everybody. Just because you're using the Unreal Engine, it gives you an opportunity to use all of these things. All right, so now that I've got it showing up down here under tutorial, and because I know where it is, I know where I'm starting to look, but remember there is a searcher at the top. So I'm going to now come up to the search box above my head here. I'm going to type in the word tutorial, Tutorial. Tutorial, I can see tutorial assets, tutorial characters. There's the character. Now there's one of these that's very fun because it's got the physics built into it. And I will drop it in next to the player start to kind of show you the difference here between the two of them. These are built for scaling, simple T-pose characters. Some of them have animations, some don't. Where's my player start? I know where it is, but as a reminder, if you come up to the world outliner and I type in something like player start, you know what? There is no player start because we use a matinee when we start here. There you go. This little clapboard indicates where we were going to start with our cameras. And in this instance, the camera pans backwards. So in order for something to show up in camera, just to double check, if I click on play here, we're pulling back from that bulletin board in the background there. Pause that. Actually do a stop. There's the bulletin board. There's my camera. I'm going to grab tutorial. This is the one that you do want. All right. And I'm going to rotate them around. Oh, my snap is set to 50 or 500. So let me move that snap down to like 10. And let me move him over a little bit more and rotate him. So he's going to show up right here. And if when I play it this time, you're going to see that tutorial character there for the T-pose. I got him a little bit. He's not really on the ground like he should be. Anybody remember how to move something so that it snaps to the ground? Something like Shift End puts them on the ground so that they're snapped there. That helps. So let's see here. One of these has got the physics assets. Let me put him right next to him. And I'm going to rotate this around so that they're facing. They look the same right now before we play. But watch what happens when I play this. Look at that physics character flopping around there. In fact, they're really fun to shoot in a first-person example map because they react to the projectile. So he's got physics on him. Looks pretty bizarre, I know. So, yeah. And you know what? That's okay. Play with it a little bit. Bring in a couple more of these. Make sure that you are actually comfortable understanding that if you don't like what's there, you delete it. So you can bring in this idle character here. We'll show you a different view. It's still to scale. He's not holding a weapon, but you kind of get where he's coming from. And if I were to play this, you'd see that there he is idle. He's just slowly moving his firearm around, his invisible firearm. All right, I don't want to go on and on ad nauseum. An actual use for the end button. There you go. So, I'm giving you the finished version. It's up to you to understand that you're going to benefit from actually doing the exercise. Just because you have a picture of somebody who's in great shape doesn't mean that you're going to be in great shape. You need to do the exercises to build up your skills. And I'm here to help you in it. All right? Again, I'm here to help you. I'm going to give you the rest of the time today to work on it. You get as far as you can. Give me an image of what you got done. If you have technical issues, reach out to me first. Don't just give me a comment. I had problems with Splash Top after the fact. If we're not working on it together, then we're not doing our job. We both have a shared responsibility here. So keep me up to date on what's going on. I will be here to help you. If you didn't get your name done yet, make sure you work on adding your name in the level in this version. Just going to take a look and see what's going on in the lab here. If you're logged on, I will open the folder on your machines for you. Good, I see people are actually starting to do this, watching the videos. Cool. I'll let you get to it. So we got 2, 4, 6, and 6 is 12. 13 people are online right now, working in lab, which is great. We got 2 more people that are not currently connected to machines. And because people are coming maybe at a different time than they used to, it might be that your primary machine is not available. So let me know if there's an issue, okay? I don't want too much confusion on that. I can bring up the spreadsheet. We'll handle that a little bit offline. I'm here for you. Be smart. Use me as a resource.